Antoni von Leeuwenhoek, armed with his high-powered microscope, was the first person to see unicellular microbes. Robert Hooke, examining cork, noticed its porous nature and called the pores cells. Years later, Schleiden and Schwann formulated the cell doctrine, claiming that all living organisms are made of cells and that cells are alive. So there you have it. Cells are the unit of life, and as we will see, cells are pretty special in what they're made of and how they're put together. Generally, cells can be divided into two types of cells. Cells without a nucleus, the prokaryotes, include bacteria, and the rest of living organisms have nucleated cells. These are referred to as eukaryotic cells. All multicellular animals and plants can be referred to as eukaryotes. Cells metabolize, replicate, grow, and divide because cells are alive. Cells are surrounded by a membrane and are filled with a liquid called cytoplasm. Eukaryotic cells subdivide their cytoplasm with internal membranes to generate intracellular compartments called organelles. Organelles like the nucleus, which contains our genes. In the last unit, we also learned that everything is made of chemical elements. When we analyze the chemical composition of cells, we discover something rather curious. Here, let me explain. Naturally, you would assume that things ought to be made of materials most readily available. Thus, for example, the stone house we saw previously. The chemical composition of things typically corresponds to the materials most commonly available. Yet, when we compare the chemical composition of the university campus, for example, to that of an average student, striking differences become apparent. The most common chemical elements that make up the inanimate world are oxygen, silicon, aluminum, and iron. These four elements comprise just about 90% of the Earth's crust. The composition of living organisms, however, is remarkably different. Oxygen, along with hydrogen, carbon, and nitrogen, make up 99% of our bodies. The striking difference in the chemical compositions of living organisms versus their surroundings must mean something about our chemistry. Indeed, as it turns out, the chemistry of life is for the most part the chemistry of carbon. Much of what goes on in our bodies is based on the unique ability of carbon to react and interact with oxygen, hydrogen, and nitrogen. Because of its unique importance, the chemistry of carbon is in a class of its own and is referred to as organic chemistry. The next really surprising fact is that the most common compound in our body contains no carbon at all. 70% of our bodies are made of water. Water, as we already mentioned, is a simple compound, H2O. Let's take a look at the rest of what we are made of. 30% of our body are made mainly of very large molecules called macromolecules. Generally, macromolecules are polymers, that is to say, molecular complexes made up of many small building blocks or subunits called monomers, linked together to form long extended chains. Thus, for example, sugar monomers, like glucose, can combine to form polymers of sugar, called polysaccharides. Polysaccharides are important for storing energy. Proteins are polymers too. They are made up of monomers called amino acids. There are 20 different amino acids, and depending on which amino acids participate in building a protein and the order in which they are linked, thousands and thousands of different proteins can be made, each with its own structure, each with its own function. In fact, proteins are the workhorse of the cell. All enzymes, for example, are proteins. These special proteins digest our food, build our bodies, and are responsible for how we think, talk, and walk. DNA and RNA are also polymers. Polymers made of monomers called nucleotides. And although there are only 8 different nucleotides, these are enough to produce all of our genes and instruct the production of all of our proteins. In the coming units, we'll learn about our genes and proteins, but first, we must understand the basic principles of how water binds water.